And the best thing we say is, no one said quit your day job. Like I walked off and thought I got away with that, but I was not comfortable. I felt like it was juggling chainsaw.
Didn't feel like it was.
No, I thought it was not fun. Telling a story on some level fun. Yeah, stand up, I thought that.
See, I don't have
I'm just close to being insufferable.
Well, I think
Oh, hello, how are you?
you could get that from most people. Like, are you actually doing stand or are you just telling a story? Because it's a great story, but like, there's no jokes in it.
But the lines.
And it's a very fine line, I think. Some people think they're doing comedy, but they're actually telling a story.
When I started this, I wanted to do drama, but people laughed at what I was doing more than I expected. Yeah, I thought I might get counterpoint, and I got much more. Okay, well, these dramas laugh at me.
You got something there.
Remember that? There's some comics out there who do comedy, but pretty much it's a hate speech.
Okay, well, we're doing hate speech. Oh, the hate speech, right.
It's borderline hate speech.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just something like, oh, this is what I observed about this. It's like, interesting.
Hi, Rose, how are you?
What about airlines here?
Nice to see you.
Like, Joel's like with three children, you guys have seen it. He's funny, but he's actually funnier when he's off the stage than when he comes on stage. He's just not issues about it. It's usually stuff that like he's comedy just like walking out.
99.
Storytelling is still new.
Yeah.
I do one line.
It's too bad. It's obviously
I want to get more stories. It's better like when there's no expectation for when the pressure is off. Right? It is totally off. Yeah.
You were saying about what you're going to do
I
tonight.
can't do it like, when I was at Lansky, there's a lot of stand-ups who would just try out the basics. There's a really thin narrative. I just love listening to the I don't want to do it, but I like listening to it. It's lost my time.
I'm not doing it.
There's an undertone of dislike.
It solves nothing. There's more balls than that.
I think what storytelling is keeping the audience engaged and getting to the point, like not going on tangents. To like tell the story, people like not following because
I thought you were going to tell me you were speaking about it.
Then I went to have insured. I know enough people in Toronto that they're live.
That was great. That was pretty good. Great.
So I just kind of stuck to it. So I just had to find years the other direction.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, CFTA. Good evening, CFTA. Good evening, CFTA. Woo, woo, woo. How are you guys? Yeah, wrong crowd. We do that for comedy and people jump up. How are you guys? Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We really appreciate it. We know you could have been doing, sweating in the heat outside, but you decided not to in our AC. So even if you're here just for the AC, we appreciate you. This event is a monthly installment here at CFTA, and we love it very much. And we have people come all the way from the east side of Hamilton to perform. So it's really big, so imagine. Quick notes, if you like some pizza, some drinks, they're at the bar. You are welcome. Also, if you'd like to purchase your video at the end of the set, it's shot on 5 cameras. It looks awesome. It's $15 also at the bar. You could pay for it, and then we'll send it to you. With that, are you ready to start? Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from downtown Hamilton, Mr. Mike Derbecker!
The sound of applause is magnificent. Good evening on an insanely hot, muggy, insufferable, etc. kind of evening. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out. Whatever you were doing yesterday, that was, give me someone shout out. What were you doing yesterday that was horrible and hot? I said horrible and hot, not fun and hot, not sexy and hot, Just like horrible and hot. Anything?
Fixing my front porch.
Fixing front porch, my good friend Brian. Anybody else? Being alive. Oh, honey, I hear you.
Cutting grass.
Cutting grass. Okay, these are all completely valid concerns. I top everybody, unfortunately. Yesterday, when I'm not doing this, I actually work as a tech writer for a certain train transportation company that works out of Ontario, and their trains are green and starts with G. I'm sure you can do the math. I have been roped into doing FIFA crowd control. Yeah. You may notice my hair is gray. I'm not a young man per se, but being a faithful employee of this institution, I said, yeah, I'll do crowd control. Sure, put me any place. They put me at Aldershot. Aldershot Station is not known for being particularly climate conscious, because I was at the front of this station where the ticket machines are telling people, oh, you're going to FIFA, go down the stairs here, it'll be track 4, it'll be track 3. I was there from around 1 o'clock to around 8 o'clock. It is not air conditioned. It was not a pleasant experience. I did have sunscreen, a hat, short sleeve shirt, a lot of water. Whenever I was on a platform trying to tell people, okay, you're going to Toronto because the train you're trying to get on right now is going to go to Niagara Falls. Don't get on this train. I'd have to take them to the other track. All of the train crew would just kind of look at me, walk past, they'd reach into coolers and give me water. It was not a fun day, but FIFA's over, I don't have to do it again, and it is much nicer to be at a place like here because amongst other things, it's dark, it's cool, and I'm guessing we're gonna have fascinating narratives. So just a really, really brief rule for the stories. Please try to keep them at around like 5 to 7 minutes. If they go a little bit over, that's okay, but keep in mind you're going to be looking at a stoplight over there. I'm going to bring the yellow light up at around the 5-minute mark, and I bring the red light up at the 7-minute mark. At the 9-minute mark, you're going to hear a gunshot. I'm not a very good shot. I'm going to try for the kill shot, but a couple people walk out without a knee or an elbow or various under appendages. And I was not going to bring that up. And show of hands, by the way, who's here for the very first time? Or just make a noise, because people are very shy about lifting their arms in really hot periods of time. I don't want to have to do the math there. There's like a faithful cult who comes here on a monthly event. I have been allowed to host this for the last 2 years, so if you're coming back, thank you. I always appreciate it. If you're new, this is a great place to try anything out. There are really no limits for the stories. Including the limits of good taste. I leave that entirely to you. And do you want to start the first person? Say yes. Yes! Oh my God, I love this. I've seen this gentleman do stand-up on more than a few occasions, and he's done storytelling on one of my events at least once, and he was great. Here he is, Tomo.
I know what you're all thinking. What is going on with his pants? No? Okay, good. Usually I do stand-up, but today I have a story to tell you about my high school swim team. Yeah, it's a little bit frightening, so if that's not for you, feel free to step out or take a break, use the washroom. So I went to high school in Tokyo. I was on the swim team. Now, my swim team was very competitive. We had a swimmer. Her name was Yumi. She was the star, best swimmer in the region. Future Olympian, a lot of people considered her to be, but unfortunately, I never got a chance to meet Yumi because she passed away about a year before I joined the team. And the way that she passed away was that she actually drowned while swimming in the same pool where we practiced, unfortunately. Yeah, it was an outdoor pool, and one day they were practicing and she had a heart attack, and unfortunately, they weren't able to resuscitate her. It happens, guys, and it's a very sad story. Now, like I said, I joined the team about a year later, and there was this rumor going around my high school about if you left school late at night, which some people did, if they had practice at another club or something, when they walk by the pool, they would hear these splashing noises at night. Splashing noises that some people said sounded like there was someone swimming in the pool. Yeah. And for a while, people just laughed it off. I thought it was a joke, And then at some point, a group of students actually decided to go and check it out. Right? So they went to the school at night, right? And they heard like, the splashing, right? The sound of like someone maybe swimming in the pool. So they very reluctantly went onto the deck, and it was all foggy and kind of dark and couldn't see anything, right? They couldn't see very well. But then one of the students said, "What's that?" And right in the middle of the pool, between the shallow and deep lane, this is what they saw. So this is the water right here, right? The water level. A hand. Just a hand coming out of the water. And as soon as the kids saw that, they split, and that was the end of that. And, I mean, I don't know if I believe that story, or I think that there was some speculation maybe that perhaps that was Yumi, the girl who died, right, in her spirit. Maybe not able to move on, right? Maybe feeling a deep sense of regret or, I don't know, grief, over what happened. And as you might, I don't know, like Japanese people are generally quite superstitious, so they believe in things like ghosts and spirits. And the sensible thing to do was actually, what they did was they hired a monk to come and cleanse the pool. So every season they would do this. They would bring in a monk, do like a spiritual cleansing, and then we open the pool for the season. So they basically brought that person back, tried to, release that person's spirit from the pool, hoping that it would never happen again. Unfortunately, it continued. There were still people reporting hearing sounds, splashing sounds coming from the pool at night. And eventually, sorry, I forgot my second part of the story. So eventually, someone else on the team, who for the purpose of this discussion, we will refer to as Kaori, okay? So Kaori-san, who was my teammate, was actually besties with Yumi at the time before she passed. She was also the second best swimmer on the team, and she decided that this had to end, that she was actually gonna go to the pool one night, and she was gonna find the hand that was, coming out of that water, and she was gonna grab it and try to pull what she thought was Yumi's spirit out of the pool, and thought that that would actually save her and allow her to move on, to the next plane, so to speak, right? Maybe that's what she wanted, was there someone to actually save her in that moment, right? So from here on out, everything I'm gonna tell you is like all secondhand stories, because I wasn't there, and also just a lot of speculation, but this is what I heard happened. So Kaori went to the pool one night, and she went there all by herself, without telling anybody. And then, apparently, when she got to the pool, she couldn't hear the splashes anymore that apparently people were hearing, but instead, a familiar voice saying, "Help me." Or in Japanese, it would be, "Tasukete," over and over again. And she quickly rushed onto the deck, and there it was. She saw the hand, just barely above the surface of the water. She went out to it, she grabbed it, and the next thing that happened, just still when I think about it, scares the crap out of me, is that she saw the face of the figure that the hand belonged to, and to her terror, it was not Yumi. It was her own face in the water. Now, I don't know, guys, some people speculated that maybe she saw her own reflection in the water and that was it, right? But I kind of thought about it for years after this and realized that there's maybe another possibility, right? Because, Kaori was actually the second best swimmer on the team behind Yumi. And basically right after Yumi died, she kind of ended up taking her spotlight, not on purpose, but she was the one winning the races, succeeding at the swim meets, being featured on publications and being told she was the next best thing. So is it possible that this was jealousy, right? A jealous act committed by Yumi's spirit, who maybe couldn't bear Kaori just taking her spot like that, right? I don't know. Because from then on, I forgot to mention something important, because Kaori lost the ability to swim competitively after that. She still came to the practices. She was obviously very shaken up, but what she said she saw. But every time she would try to swim at a meet or a competition, she'd take off, start swimming. As soon as she started, her chest would start to hurt, and she had to stop, right? Do you think it's possible, perhaps? I thought about this for a long time, that maybe Yumi, out of jealousy, was trying to prevent her from swimming. Anyway, I think we'll never find out the truth. In fact, I'm pretty sure we'll never find out the truth, because this story is entirely made up. Thank you, guys.
One more time for Tomo, please. I was fully prepared to come up here and say, "Oh my God, that was an incredible story," and I thought you're gonna drop a joke at the last minute, and then you did. So that's still genuinely creepy. I have a geeky question. Japanese folklore, would they call that a yokai?
Yokai, apparition, or a ghost.
So it would be kind of the same thing, right? It's not like a yokai is a demon and a ghost is a ghost or something?
So Yurei is a ghost, and a yokai is a bit closer to an apparition.
Okay.
Yeah, or like a demon, as you say,
Yeah, well, I took 3 years of Japanese film at university. Once a film student, always a film student. I just want to remind people, by the way, a few people came in after we started. If you want to do a piece, please, the sign-up sheet is over there. The standard rules are like 5 to 7 minutes. Watch the light. I'm going to turn the red off in a second because the controller's over there. And the next person who's going to come up is named Julie. I know nothing about her. Here she is.
Thanks, everybody. I've been writing these little postcards or scenes of memories that I have, so I was just going to share with you tonight. So here we go. It's the custom in my family to seek the guidance of a family elder or a sadhu about a baby's name. And these customs were completed when my mother was expecting my sister, and just 11 short months after my sister was born, my mom was again pregnant with me, and so the organizing began for my arrival. My grandmother wrote to her family in Kolkata regularly to share news, seek advice, and to arrange for any required consultations. This was long before the days when requests could be submitted online or via email. My grandmother would need to write her family and to ask her sister or a close cousin to consult the appropriate person, and that person would need to confer with others in their household, e.g., a man, about the best person to ask, and then they would need to meet with that person face-to-face to communicate the request and negotiate a payment. The sadhu would then do rituals of their own, consult star charts and the like. And then my family in India would need to return to see them, to learn the outcome, and then pen a response to my grandmother. Along the way, there were inevitable delays of daily dramas, weather, holiday shutdowns, juggling priorities, so the process took months. I didn't see the letters that were sent by my grandmother to India, but I do remember the letters that would arrive at our house in Canada. All of the letters were kept in a special drawer in the kitchen, and each one stacked on the other in a bundle that was held together with a red elastic band. On the outside, the letters were identical. They had the same stamps, the same address of the sender, as well as our address. And the paper was a pale blue, thin newsprint with a dark blue border around the outside that was dotted, and bright red lettering that announced airmail. And these would need to be purchased directly from the Indian Post. The receiver of the letter would need to open it carefully or have tape on hand, since the text of the letter was written on the reverse side of the envelope. So in this way, the sender would fill out their regulation 1 page of correspondence that the Indian mail had decided was sufficient for international communications. And they would follow the instructions and, using tabs lined with adhesives, fold the page into an envelope. And this type of post had the advantage of being lightweight, tamper-resistant, no enclosures were allowed, and it would be evident to the receiver if the envelope was ever opened. And that was kind of a going concern with the Indian mail in those days. It was in one of those letters that my name arrived, written in Hindi. The line of the ruled page is used as a shelf on which the letters hang the characters rather than a base in English, like to write the letters upon. And I was so amazed that those symbols made sense to my mom and my grandmom, because I don't read Hindi. And to my eyes, it was just mysterious, but to my grandmother and mother, it was clear and obvious. And sometimes I'd even ask my mom to read the letters to me, but it was very apparent that what they recounted to me was heavily edited and a high-level summary. I'd pester them with questions and details, but was met with response that I just wouldn't understand. Yeah. This is on my next little postcard. My grandmother spoke about 5 different languages, including Hindi, Punjabi, Urdu, as well as studying Sanskrit. She was never confident in her English speaking. Even though her skills were solid, she felt comfortable speaking in Hindi, and she organized her life so she didn't have to speak English. She spoke Hindi with my sister and I at home. We went to the Indian store for groceries. We worshiped at a Hindu temple. All of the physicians were Indian. That wasn't a problem at all, finding an Indian physician. Family friends were all Hindi speaking, and it seemed like that may have been the only criteria for being a family friend. If you spoke Hindi, you were welcome to sit at the kitchen table for hours and talk about life back home. And of course, you'd have tea and stay for dinner, and my sister and I were expected to call you uncle or auntie. However, my mom wanted my sister and I to learn English before going to public school, and she was busy to teach us. And we were at home with our grandmother all day, and there was no daycare or preschool for us. So it was decided that our English language education would be the kids' programming lineup on our public provincial broadcaster, TVO. So we had Polka Dot Door, Today's Special, Read Along, Mr. Dress Up, and The Friendly Giant. And you know what? I think looking back, I felt like a relief to my grandmother to park us in front of the TV for a while so she could finally have some peace and just do her work. My sister and I were entranced by TV. We sat still for hours, our faces inches from the screen. We soaked up what they were offering. I fell in love with TV and how immersive it was and how I felt transported to this new world. I loved the hosts, the adventures that they had, how they're all so beautiful, perfectly dressed for every occasion, always in a good mood with loads of friends who would just stop by. And everything was orderly and neat. Every problem had a solution and resolved by the end of the episode, and usually included a song. I loved the places where they lived, how things were warm and cozy and safe, no sharp edges. They had cupboard stocked with anything they needed, trunks filled with treasures, portals to magical worlds. They would venture into big backyards filled with flowers, ponds, and friendly animals. Our backyard had dandelions, grass that was mainly weeds, a rusty swing set, and we could hear a neighbor's dog barking over the fence. For a few years, my parents kept a veggie patch, and it was magical to watch the cucumbers, peas, and tomatoes grow. But going back to the TV, my sister and I were rapt listeners of the stories. We sang along to the songs and begged to make the crafts that were demonstrated on the show. My grandmother was baffled by our requests for markers and pipe cleaners, white glue, and tissue paper. "What nonsense is this?" she replied, throwing up her hands. It was a cranky transition back to the real world once the TV was shut off, a mixture of complaints and bargaining for a few more minutes, our grandmothers calling us to the kitchen to eat lunch, us complaining. We had to blink a few times to find our way back and reorient to our ordinary, quiet, repetitive life. The browns of the shag living room carpet, the white and brown geometric patterns on the linoleum floor of the kitchen, the rust-colored swirling patterns around the rim of the white Corningware plates. I'll leave it there. Thanks so much for listening.
That was beautiful. One more time for Julie, please. Julie, I want your permission for something. I distantly am in touch with one of the puppeteers from Today's Special and Polka Dot Door. Brian and I did a storytelling workshop with her a while ago, and I've run into her a few times since then. No, it's Nina. It's Nina. Okay. Maybe she could tell you some stories. I don't know. But I have like very quietly said, if you want to come to Hamilton, like please do my event because your stories are great. Can I show her your bit?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's wonderful. And that was great. That was a beautiful story. Thank you. I barely speak English, so I can't imagine having to learn it from scratch. And that's astounding. Thank you for telling this story. Next person who's coming up is an incredibly funny guy. He was nice enough to ask me on to his podcast around 6 months, a year ago? 6 months? Something like that? In the past, was nice enough to let me do his podcast. He's come here a few times. He is very funny and very cool, and the rest you will pick up. And I'm going to ask him right now, do you want to hold the mic or have the stand? All right. DJ Roy. David DJ Roy.
So yeah, I actually have a story similar to yours. Just a small clip is my family are refugees. They fled a repressive regime, and my dad had to failed kindergarten because he only spoke French. They fled Quebec in the 50s to Ontario because back in the 50s and 60s, being Métis in Quebec was not cool. So, before comedy, my career would be best described as narcotics middle management. Yeah, I got stories. And but this story is like how I ended that life and started comedy was at the time, my grandmother was in the hospital with cancer, and I would go there regularly and sit and play checkers with you, which, by the way, it's a really struggle to throw games of checkers. There's, it's not that much strategy. You're kind of like, it's not like chess where you're like, oh, I didn't see that move. No, it's right there. And so we would talk. And she would talk and talk. And she's like, Deej, we're not stupid. You have no real job, but yet you always have money. When are you going to live a good life? You do this comedy thing as a hobby. Why don't you proceed, go with it? And so I would go and I'd brush her off and whatever. And at the same time, my sister was pregnant with my soon-to-be niece or nephew, gender to be released later. So one day I was doing, work, and all of a sudden my pager went off. And for you Gen Zers, a pager is a little black box that when it goes off, somebody wants cocaine. And your struggle now is to go find a payphone. Okay, so a payphone is a phone outside where you put a quarter in. Okay, a quarter is a denomination of money that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so I was down doing a drug deal. My pager goes off. It was just hospital 911. So I'm panicking. I don't know if my grandmother's dying or if my soon-to-be niece or nephew is being born. So I told the guy, listen, if you can get me to the hospital ASAP, I will give you this 8-ball of cocaine. I know. We broke speed barriers. We ran red lights. This guy was serious and vitally motivated by cocaine, which a lot of my clientele were. I had a lot of sleepless nights. Now, so we're beaming there. I get there, and I run into the room. I gave the guy an 8-ball because I'm good for my word. I'm an honest coke dealer. There's very few of us, but I am. So I gave him my word. I walked into what I assumed was my grandmother's room to find my grandmother holding my new nephew, Dominic. I know, sweet. And she gave me a look. And that look told me everything. Because that look told me, she didn't have to say a word, but her look said, do you really want to see this kid grow up through prison visits? And something snapped at me, and I changed my life around. I went home and had an Everything Must Go sale, and you'd be surprised on how fast discounted cocaine goes. There was a lineup out in front of my door. Neighbors started asking questions. And that night, I went from very wealthy person to that was quickly introduced to poverty because I had to get an actual job because apparently comedy doesn't pay the bills. But shortly afterwards, a few months, we buried my grandmother. And at her eulogy, or like I got up and said this, and I'll never forget this, is one day, maybe not today, not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually, you're going to walk down the street and feel empty inside, cold, hollow, and a warm breeze is going to pass through you. And it'll fill your heart full of love and warm your body up. And the words grandma will come to your lips. And at that moment, you will truly know you're never, never alone. And so now when I do comedy, no matter how bad the sets are, and trust me, there's been some. I mean, hell, I did 80 rigged pigs in northern Alberta who were upset that I wasn't a stripper. But yet still wanted to see something naked. Let's just say it's cold in northern Alberta, there was shrinkage. Now, so when I have those kind of nights, I have to stop and remember I answer to a higher power than the local comedy scene. So yeah, that is now why I live in poverty. I am a Buddhist wet dream. I love suffering and poverty to find my personal enlightenment. And if you want some strange shit, follow me on the internet. My name's David DJ Roy. Google me. Some weird stuff will come up.
I believe Incomparable says it. David DJ Roy, one more time. That managed to be genuinely touching and really funny at the same time. I don't know how you can do that. I wish I could do that so easily. And as for the slight shrinkage problem, just it's a poor craftsman who blames his tool. Okay, I'm just saying. Oh, of course it was August. That's another story. Next person is coming up. I only met shortly. And by shortly, I mean like 45 minutes ago. This gentleman has a fringe show that's going on very, very soon, and he's here tonight. This is Eric. Cool.
Six shots were fired that night. Pow, 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 pow. What a night. Il Grande Torino, greatest soccer team Italy's ever fielded. Greatest soccer team probably the world's ever seen. They won the Scudetto 5 times in the 1940s. Scudetto's the patch you wear on your sleeve to show you're the champions of Italy. They probably would have won more too if it wasn't for the war, and after 1949, that's a separate story. But my father was there. He would have been like 6 years old. He was from Torino. And he was there in 1948, April 28th, and remembers it all. But remembered it all. I mean, back then he had a great memory. Not like now, where the Alzheimer has folded his brain so much that he's pretty much stuck here in this 250 square foot hospice room to live out his last days in silence. But, he would tell the story, and I think, if we kind of just sort of squint our imagination, we could still see it too. It was a beautiful team. I mean, there. Valerio Bacigalupo, greatest netminder Italy's ever known. He would leap in the air like a dancer and just kind of snatch the ball right out of the heavens, contort his body, kind of stumble when he fell back on his pitch. And the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard says that's how you can really tell the special dancers from just the great ones. The real special dancers, they never stick their landings. Because when they're up in the air like that, they get a little, vision of the gods. And they never want to come back down. It's kind of like pilots, too. My dad was a pilot. And Guy Murchie, in his book Song in the Sky, writes that pilots are the same way. When they're above the clouds, in this sort of lake of sunlight, they never want to come down to the pressures of this world. And when they do, Murchie writes, pilots are just like the birds. They never stick their landings. They always little boop, 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 on landing. And that Bacigalupo is the same way. 39 clean sheets in his career, and at age 25, prime of his life. And over there, Valentino Mazzola, Il Tulin, they called him, the tinsmith, because he was a man of the people. He would work in the off-season at an automobile factory just to make ends meet, because he wasn't like those fancy Juventus players on the other side of Torino. He was a man of the people. And when things really got tense on the pitch, always the same thing. He'd always do the same thing. He'd just roll up his sleeves. And then he'd kind of rub his hands together. And then you knew it was time to go to work. But on that night, my dad would have been like 6 years old. He would have been with my grandfather. That team from Torino, they were already up 4-0. My grandfather wanted to go home. My father was crying. He wanted to stay, so my grandfather relented. It's a good thing, too, because a couple sections over, Oreste Bomita, super fan, took out his horn that he always carried for just such occasions. And he leaned into it, and he played. Ba-ba, ba, ba-ba. And the crowd went nuts. And that Mazzola on the pitch, you know what he did? He just rolled up his sleeves. And he rubbed his hands together. And just like that, that team fired off 6 quick shots. Pow, 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 pow. All of them goals. It was incredible. They went from 4-0 to 10-0. It always impressed my father. For me, what's the difference? It's 4-0 it's a win. They were guaranteed to win. The Scudetto was well in hand. There's nothing. But it mattered to him because how you did it on the pitch mattered. We're all going to lose our final match sooner or later. That's what he used to say. And probably, there's no escaping that one. But a part of me always wonders why. Like, why try that hard? Would they have tried so hard if they'd known 1 year later they'd all be dead? The whole team. In a plane crash, the side of Superga Mountain, just outside of Torino, coming back from a friendly in Portugal, the entire team, pretty much the entire staff. Would they have, why do that? Why put in that effort if it's all going to be for naught? That's kind of like that blade of grass just outside this hospice room. If you think about it, what makes the grass grow is one question. Why? That's what always interests me. I mean, this tiny blade of grass, all the forces of the universe operating against it. Air is at its most densest. The air pressure is its most dense. It's closest to the ground. Everything's forcing against it. Animals, humans, clopping. Probably won't even survive the season. And yet there it goes, right up through the soil, right out of the ground, up into the light. And it's so irrational, pointless. For what? I mean, why don't we just, I know it sounds crass. just pull the plug here on my father too. He never wanted it to be like this. This wasn't the way he wanted it to go. You know? And that's when I hear this beeping sound coming through the speakers in the room. This like, beep, 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 beep. And this voice, this angelic voice sounding on the other side of the door. It's time. And then an almost amazing thing happens. I see my father's lips start to move. I mean, I haven't seen this in weeks. Very clearly, like clearly trying to say something. One sort of some last words of wisdom from the dead to the living. And so, you know, I walk over and I kind of just sort of walk right up to where he's laying and just sort of lean over his cold, pale face, put my lips kind of right up to his mouth, and I hear it again. Beep, 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 beep. And the voice again outside the door, louder now. It's time. And that's when I realized they're not coming for my father. They're coming for me. Because that sound is actually the sound that's lunchtime in the hospice room. And that voice outside the door is the nurse telling me it's time to go. Because it's time to feed my father lunch. And his lips that are moving, he's not trying to say anything at all to me, actually. He just, somewhere in that folded brain, he knows that it's time for lunch. And he's hungry. And it's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it, that here in this perfectly ordinary 250 square foot room, this guy, my father, still fights for this life.
That deserves another hand for Eric, please. That is incredible. Thank you for telling that. And firstly, it was deeply moving, and secondly, that was tight. You got a lot of information across really quickly. Like, thank you.
Thank you.
What's your show called?
The Last Hornblower.
The last hornblower?
There'll be more horn blowing, I promise.
Don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Whose horn is going to be blown? Okay. There's a list of people who don't. Okay, that's another story. Thank you. That was amazing. Next person coming up is a wonderful person for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because she also has had a storytelling event here. She allowed me to do a piece that I had been rattling around for about a decade. And the only time I actually did it cover to cover was here at her event. She's a very kind person. She's also incredibly talented. She has appeared at one or two of my Readers Theater events, and it's fascinating to watch her read something out loud, and you can hear her say, okay, next time I do this, I will emphasize A, B, C, and D. Every time she does something, there's another dimension added to it. And she has a friend show coming up very quickly, which I think she should tell you about, because I have too much caffeine. I just forgot the title of it. And she's a kind person, and she's wonderful. And this is Jen Frankel.
I think it's the Fringe show with the longest title, the Fringe this year. It's called Spooning the Great Bear by the Light of the Moon. It's about 3 women on a road trip and one friendship that's not going to survive. I wasn't sure I should come up tonight because I've been very depressed in the clinical sense and very tired, but I wanted to come up and just challenge myself, so I'm digging back deep into teenage Jen back in London, Ontario, where I'd started working at City Lights bookstore when I was 12 years old for the inimitable Mark Emery, Canada's King of Pot. I don't know if you know Mark, but he's famous for having spent a good chunk of time in a prison in the States for pot. Yeah, did a good. Yeah, he did it. I think he enjoyed it. Honestly, like I think it gave him a real thrill to do that. I'm not going to say that for sure, but I just knowing him, I think that probably was the best day of his life when he got called down to the States to serve his time. So I worked from the time I was 12 years old as a bookstore clerk. Met so many interesting people. Joined the Freedom Party of Ontario when I was 13. In another story, I stopped being conservative at the age of 5 when I thought that Gerald Ford had a really nice face and carried a sign to kindergarten that said, "Re-elect Gerald Ford," that I made in the basement with my dad. It was the last time I ever did that. Yeah, so that's got absolutely nothing to do with this story. This story takes place when I was 18, 19, had just moved downtown London, Ontario, out on my own for the first time. And there used to be this goth couple that came into the store. And I just found them so sexy and intriguing and amazing. And his name was Damien. It had to be Damien, right? And her name was Carrie. But it's and it just seemed so perfect, so perfect. And they would come in and we would talk, and they would just hang out in the store for hours and we'd chat. I loved them. And one day they invited me to come over to their place after I finished work. And I was a fairly naive in some ways, 18, 19-year-old, despite the fact that part of my job at the store involved, well, I was the pornography bagger. We had tons and tons of porn magazines that would come in. I wasn't allowed to buy the porn mags, but I was allowed to sort through them and decide which ones went nicely together. And this is starting to sound like a story of Mike's, actually. I like to think that I was very discerning in my in my ability to put porn mags together in a nice way, and then decide how much they were worth. So naive but not naive at the same time, if you know what I'm saying. So I went over to Damien and Carrie's place after work one night. So we walked all the way through downtown London, down by the river, out down one of the streets that heads out of downtown to a nice kind of, downscale, starting to be suburban neighborhood just on the verge of the urban core. And they propositioned me. And I wasn't really sure what to do with that, so I did what I always do under those circumstances and politely declined and then hung out with them for the rest of the night. So jump forward in time to about 3 years later when I actually had, I didn't like school. I hated school. I can't even begin to tell you how much I hated school. So I actually left myself a credit short at the end of my high school experience because I didn't want to be forced into going to university. But then when I got to be 23, I decided that I might as well finish high school just to have the diploma, because at that point I would be a mature student and I could go back to. There was basically no reason to keep myself one credit short any longer because I could go back to university I could refuse to go back to university as a mature student. So I was down at a coffee shop not so far from my house, my parents' house when I moved home. And who is there sitting at a table in the coffee shop but a girl from my high school class, 1 year behind me, Julia, and with her is Damien. Still all gothed up. Julia's kind of half goth. I'm kind of half goth too. I'm like never hardcore goth, but I've always worn pretty much black clothing all the time, mostly because you don't have to worry about spilling stuff on yourself. So they asked me if I would come over. So I'm like a few years older, I think I'm a little bit wiser at this point. I'm a lot more experienced. I had my first sexual experience at 19. How many people lied in their first sexual experience because they didn't want the other person to be so worried about about being with a virgin? Did anybody else do that, or was that just me? Was that just me? No, somebody else? Yeah. So, so I said sure. Got my dad to drive me downtown to where Damien and Julia lived. And the first thing they said was, let's go get something to eat or something to drink. We went to the variety store and we got Jell-O because it's both. And we went back to their place, and I spent the rest of the day listening to every single album that the Dead Kennedys ever recorded. And it was an absolutely wonderful, fun experience. And that's my story about Damien. No sex. No sex. Thank you.
The incomparable Jen Frankel. I have to, okay, since we've both had an experience in our life where we've had to package pornography for sales purposes, go on my Instagram, you can find out. How did you do it? I'm serious, how did you do it?
It didn't take me long to be very familiar with all the titles. I was very discerning.
It's like all the Hustlers together, all the Spank Me together.
Yeah. And, you can see like certain magazines were a little bit more kinky, so you can package those together.
Okay, hey.
Like Playboys, you looked for the series,
Okay, because I think education is never a loss. So anybody out there, if you need to.
I don't think they have those magazines. The internet.
Being a gentleman, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. By the way, you have. There you go.
For some old men who like that.
Of a certain age. Old men of a certain age is me at the moment, unfortunately.
Nostalgia.
Hey, I found a Playboy of my birth month and birth year.
Wow.
It wasn't 9 months before, because it may actually have spurred.
Oh yeah, I should have found that one too.
Did your dad sign it that particular in January and you were born in September?
I just found it on the internet and I was like, okay, I gotta have it now.
You found it on the internet because you were looking for the articles, right?
Sure.
Of course. Also, you have far more self-control. Any time a goth ever propositioned me, I tended to go home with them. And I am, in that particular time of life, like my teenage years, I was incredibly white bread. I don't know why goths found me interesting other than thinking maybe they want to corrupt me, which was fine by me. So congratulations for your self-control. The next person is coming up. I always say thank you to repeatedly because, among other things, this is Jake's space. He manages this entire institution. He has allowed me to host these evenings. He's also an incredibly talented storyteller. He encourages everybody's behavior, and he's all yours. Jake Chink.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a while since I've been on stage, and it's surprising. I'm feeling nervous again. Take a deep breath. So I hear that Argentina has prevailed, if anybody's curious. And I was paying attention to the World Cup because, I'm of Turkish descent, and the Turkish team was in the World Cup. And I felt like I realized something about the Turkish people by watching them, and it's that maybe overconfidence is kind of a Turkish trait. In the sense that if you watch their games, it's like, look at these magnificent passes. Look at us. We're just moving the ball around. Tamam, çok güzel, çok güzel. Very good. That's it. But they forgot the score. Right? you can pass the ball around for 80% of the time, but if you don't get it in the net, you don't win. It's weird. That's the way the game is. I also realized it in my father, who displayed this overconfidence, I would say. We'd have these discussions, and he would say, if I had your opportunities, your language, I would run this country. It's kind of annoying arguing with him because he wasn't wrong. Like, he really, this guy did a lot. He was a bit of a gambler, smuggler, underworld Istanbul guy. Came to Canada, had to be a steel worker eventually, which was the best possible world, to get that gig. And it's kind of true. I realized that confidence has a lot to do with art, for example, which is something that I've chosen to do. And I've recently started coming out as an artist and admitting it. And there are many reasons and hindrances that delayed me doing that, well into my 50s, really. It's like I just kept passing the ball around, getting ready. I just have a few hundred more books to read, a couple of more degrees to finish. I haven't really looked at, post-war Czech cinema. I gotta get, dig deep into that before I become an artist. And eventually, you're gonna run out of time and you're gonna lose, so. I would ask my dad, so I get it. And I would argue with him, even though I probably agreed with him. And it's like, so you could, what about like a surgeon? He goes, sure, I could be a surgeon. What's the problem? Go to the right school, pick up the skills. What do you think? You saw that doctor we saw last week. He's a jackass. What do you think? He's a genius? He's a plumber. He's a plumber. He's figured out the human body. He knows how it all works. And he gets paid well for it. You could, he says, I could be a politician. Sure, it's basically just a show anyway. And then I might say, what about artists? He goes, sure, I could, especially an artist, because it's basically a con job, right? It's just, you just got to convince people that you're profound. And you got it made. It's really particularly easy to do that. Yeah, but could you be like a great artist? He'd say, I'd be in the conversation. Like the greatest artists, greatest living artist. Yeah, I'd be in the conversation. He goes, I would bet that somebody at some point discussing the greatest artists in the world would bring my name up and I'd be in the conversation. If I really tried, And his confidence kind of rubbed off on me because as a young man, I was kind of an annoying, overconfident guy. It's like, I know that I can't play in the NBA. I know that. But if I started at age 3 and really dribbled the ball a lot, I probably could make it. It's that overconfidence. And I think a lot of the reason, or for many artists, the reason that they fail to come out as an artist, to blossom, is sometimes confidence. Just not being confident enough that, who gives a shit about what I have to say or what I have to do? That stops us from doing it. But sometimes it's overconfidence. It's like, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so profound, so amazing that I just got to make sure it's ready. I don't want to release it to the world until everything's ready to go. And again, my dad's not wrong. It's the idea of a con man, is short for confidence man. Right. It's someone who convinces you that he's confident in what he's saying is true, and he is what he shows himself to be. It's like an authenticity test, right? Bullshit detector he had in spades. Would always be commenting on, yeah, that guy's bullshitting. Oh, that's for real. Oh, this, he could just constantly on alert for that. Which is really interesting as an art critic. He wasn't. He didn't really take it seriously. But I mean, that's really what it's about, isn't it? Like figuring out so-called authenticity. To be authentic, you got to know who you are. It's not that obvious, right? But, you know, you get the confidence to create yourself as an artist, as an author. You're authoring yourself. I guess that's what they mean by authenticity. You know? Otherwise, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know. Thank you, Michael.
Again for Jake, who is the founder of this particular feast. And all of the stand-up feasts and all the French feasts. So, again, thank you, Jake, for doing that. The next person is coming up is Amy, who should make herself recognizable, and there she is. I'm lousy at doing introductions. I keep trying to improvise. It's not my forte. But her name has 3 letters, A-M-Y, Amy. Would you like to say?
Yeah, I'm sure. The 2 things are bad or good. It's just subjective. It's subjective. Everything's subjective. Hello there. Does this work? Can you hear me now? Yeah, you can. I was going to talk about why I'm a shitty girlfriend, but then I thought, no, nobody wants to know that. Do you want to know that? Sure. Really? Nah. Maybe. I think I'm a shitty girlfriend and I'm a shitty friend. And the reason why they're both exactly for the same reason. And it's because I don't say anything. I feel like it's something where I want to avoid conflict at all times. So rather than have the conversation, the big conversation, I will just say nothing. So therefore, I'm not living a very authentic life. Like I'm doing all kinds of things I don't really want to be doing, and nobody knows. So I actually appear to be a really good girlfriend, but I'm actually shit because that's not actually me. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I am a shitty girlfriend. Maybe, and I'm a shitty friend. But it's not because I don't want to be a good either of those things. It's because I can't even stand the idea of someone being upset with me in any sort of way. And it's something I'm like ancient. I need to get over this, right? I need to be okay if somebody's upset or mad or yells at me or, you know, who cares? Someone yells at you, fuck that, you know, like whatever, get over it, buddy. But I can't. Like as soon as I sense anything that is unsaid, I just kind of melt into the room and become, I would avoid anything rather than just have somebody be, you know, you could make me the worst meal that I could even be allergic to it. I'd just sit and eat it because I would just think, I don't want to upset you that you've made this meal that I hate, and I would just eat monkey brains just to make you not be upset with me. That's a crazy thing to be this old. I'm 58 years old, and I don't want to upset anybody all the time. Like why? And I'm walking around living my life like that, and that isn't okay. But how do you get over that? Tell me, how do you do that? It's programming, right? Yeah, like gonna go kick my dad's ass. Like what the hell, right? Yeah, it's like how do you stop being that way? It's very, go where?
You go love that little girl that got told she couldn't speak.
Yeah, maybe. I'm gonna get therapy right here, right now. How cool is that? I have a plan, you know. I could probably go, but I like your therapy better. Anyway, so I do need to work on that, and I am trying to say that I'm upset, or I hate that movie, or I don't want to play that game, or your cooking is terrible. But pretty soon I'll have no friends. I'm just going to go from being a shitty friend to having 0 friends, because I'm going to come out full on and tell everybody what I think all the time. And people are like, I liked you better when you shut up. I think my phone is talking to me. So it's a fine line, right, between trying to be kind and nice and a good human, and to actually live an authentic life and look back and say, this is the life that I actually would like to be living. And you're going to all of a sudden look back and go, what the hell? I never did anything I wanted to do. I went to the wrong movies, ate the wrong food, you know, played the wrong game, sat with the wrong people. Also, I didn't make anybody upset with me. That's not a good life, right? Because at the end of it, you're going to be like, not happy at all. But you wouldn't made anybody upset with you. If that was your full goal. But that can't be a goal. Is that your goal ever, Jen? Yeah? You know what I'm talking about, right? Never? You've not had that goal? Yeah, I think I might have been at one point, and then all of a sudden I flipped. And it seemed to be more important to just get through the day. But you don't want to live your life just getting through the day. Anyway, I was going to read a story, but I'm not anymore. I'll talk to you later, guys.
One more time for Amy. Amy, you are absolutely welcome to come back a third time, because you've been here at least twice. Read your story next time, but that was great without a story.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And like completely honest, and I have a feeling everybody in this room reaches a point where they think, why do I do what I do? Why do I feel what I feel? Why do I do something that I feel I shouldn't do, or what have you? That's kind of universal. And you said it perfectly, so thank you very much. The next person coming up is, among other things, frequently the videographer here, and his stories. I say this too often about people, because there are a lot of really talented people here. They manage to be funny and heartbreaking in kind of equal measures. He can do it in such a way that he makes it look easy, and that's really irritating, because you have to work your way up to that level. And here he is. This is George.
Hello, guys. My theme for this past 4 or 5 months has been death. I don't care. Seriously, like, I don't know. I know how you're feeling right now. Ugh, I don't care. I don't care. My mom passed away in February, and every day, because the loss was sudden, the loss was intense, and it wasn't something that we anticipated, at least not now. You know, you always bargain like that with life. You're like, not now, right? But it was now. I mean, life went, fuck you, you don't get to tell me what to do, and she died. So the more I reflect on her, and this is coming off fresh because I just had therapy this morning, so bear with me. I'm unpacking this as I'm speaking to you. The more I try to process what happened with my mom, the more I think of small stories that used to either irritate me, or stories that used to escape me in terms of meaning. Now that I reflect on them, I see them through a different lens. A lens that is more appreciative, a lens that is more, I'll say, a lens that understands why she did what she did when she was around, because she isn't anymore, because she died. She's dead. It's tense. I love it. Look at you guys. Some of you are like, I should get a beer right now. I don't know. Like, one of these things is, I I often say this to my sister, and she doesn't understand it. I even say it to my wife, she doesn't understand it. I always say to my sister, you and I had different parents. And she keeps telling me, what does that mean? And I say it to my wife, because my wife is the youngest between her. She's here, by the way, for the first time ever. That's why I'm not looking that side, because I look at her and my heart melts. It does, but no, like the youngest children don't understand this, because as the eldest, you always get hit with the storm first. And the things that I had to go through with my parents, my sister didn't. Same for my wife's sister. What her sister had to go through, she didn't have to. I grew up with parents who were barely able to make it. Parents who had every will to do what it takes, but never the means to do what it takes. Whereas my sister grew up with parents who got a house and, you know, bought like a couple of cars for the household, and she got an iPad when she was 14. When I was 14, I got dirt. Big difference. So you know what I mean? So I always say this, like, it doesn't dawn on different generations in the same family how different the parents are from one sibling to the other, from one child to the other. And one of these stories is, again, my sister grew up not needing anything. She always dressed like beautifully. My mom treated her like a doll. If she wanted strawberries at 2 a.m., my mom would make it happen, you know. If I wanted to stay awake till 8:05 instead of 8, I would get beat up. So it's a big difference. But the story lies in the fact that I never thought of how that impacts my parents. I always looked at it from my own lens. Like, I wanted toys, but my mom would save up and get me only books, which made me hate her, but eventually made me love her more, because she's responsible for my intellect. She's the reason I read a lot. She's the reason I'm interested in so many things. She's the reason I'm curious, because she always fed my curiosity. She never bookended it, like, oh, this is where it stops. Like, the library was the one place I'm allowed to go to no matter how much I want, how many times I want. Never was it a question of, if I want to play outside, there's conversations to be had. Going to the library, you're good to go. She wouldn't even care what time I come back, as long as she knows I'm in the library. I wasn't. I was getting raped. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I don't know why I do that. It's like I get emotional and then I wanna. I want them to think I'm a man, which is weird because I'm saying I got raped. So I don't. Go figure. No, but the thing is with books, I hated my mom, because I was 7, 8, and I'm like, what do you mean I don't get toys? I'm getting books. But eventually, out of boredom, I opened the book, and that was the last thing I remember me being upset at my mom for, like, as a child. But see, it's very personal the way I looked at it. Like, oh, I didn't get a toy, she got me a book, but now I appreciate it. I never thought of it on how my parents felt. And I think when I do that, I can offer them a bit more grace, and then eventually give myself a bit of not playing the victim anymore. Like, I don't want to play the victim. But because inside our heads, we have these conversations, right? Like, oh, I had a bad childhood. Like, I deserve to be. No, you don't deserve shit, dude. Like, it's fine. Life is shit wall to wall, right? So we have to just play it. That's the name of the game. That's life. Like, it's not guaranteed in any other way. I've seen billionaires who became homeless and homeless who stayed homeless. It doesn't change. But now that I look at it, I remember a very distinct incident that I always thought of as a measure of how bad my parents were. never looked at it as how my parents were, like how they were feeling. And the story goes like this. We were walking in the market in Kuwait, where we used to live as a child, and we were passing, it's like an open plaza, a lot of stores next to one another. There was a Burger King, McDonald's, not McDonald's, sorry, Burger King, Hardee's, which is, I don't know what they call it in the States. We don't have it here, but it's a big chain as well. And we just so happened to walk past the toy store. And I look at the display, and I'm a child, right? And I'm standing there, and I tell my, can I look? Can I look? She goes, yeah. And I stand there, and I eyed, which in retrospect is very stupid, but I eyed like the cheapest item in the display, which is tennis balls. It wasn't even a racket. It wasn't even like a bicycle. It was just tennis balls. And I asked my parents, can I get tennis balls? And it was something like $50 probably. And I was 5, so I remember this in sequence, but I remember distinctly the ride back home, both my parents were crying. And I often use that story to say, this is how poor we were. Like, I wanted a tennis ball to play, and my parents couldn't afford it, which was like $50, because they were barely making rent. And they had a baby who was still wearing diapers. Yeah, 5. Fucked up, I know. So now that I think of that story, because I lost my mom, because this is no longer a conversation we could have in jest, like, oh, remember when I made you guys cry over a tennis ball? I understand it at a deeper level, especially that now I'm turning 40 and I'm an orphan, if like the new Annie. I understand midlife crises. Don't worry, nothing with other women. It's existential. But when I remember that story, I often look at it and I go, that must have felt like shit to have your son, which my mom still, until she died, she would call me the apple of her eye. Like, she loved me so much. Even my dad loved me so much. Even, like, as if he had a choice. Like, it's one of us. We can't both love him. They both loved me so much, but I never really appreciated how they must have felt in that moment. Here I am, a child, innocent, not according to the priest. Yeah, I fucking love those jokes. I don't care. And here I am, not thinking about how they felt. And now that I have my own life, I'm set in my way. I have my own career, my own wife. Not mine, by the way. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. Now that I have my own life, what I want to say is, I sometimes forget that my parents were people. I often forget that my parents are fucking trying their best. They tried their best. And when they cried, that was also their best. And while they took it in jest and laughed at it with me and told me, oh, yeah, it was funny, I couldn't afford a tennis ball, that must have crushed them. But just like them, and that's the reason I said my sister had a different parent than I did. If anything I could learn from them is, much like they were different parents to my sister, like they were to me, because their life changed, they turned it upside down and they made it. I also think, to me and everybody, it's never too late to be the person you need to be in the room you're in, as long as that starts like from a deep will to change it, and it's accompanied with a dash of just being a bit selfless. Because the moment I lost my mom, genuinely, and I cannot stress this enough, and I say this often to Celeste, I feel like I have no roof anymore. I'm 40. I can deal with life. Like, I'll grab the devil by the horns and fuck him up. I don't care. I'm strong. But I have no roof. I had a roof. I had a dock to go back to and speak to and be and share my woes. And I know I won't be judged. My wife, she's allowed to judge me. She's a different person. We met later, both in each lives. It's not like we've known each other since we were children. And I hope she doesn't love me unconditionally, because love comes with conditions. But that was the one person who I could be the shittiest version of myself in front of, and she would find a way to help me dock back, reset me, and send me back into the world. And crying over a tennis ball, for a person who is as strong as my mom, must have meant that she was at the very end of her rope. And instead of me helping at the time, which is not fair because I'm a child, I didn't know, I kind of shoved her hand off the rope, and she felt that she's free falling. And that's a thought I live with now. And that's a thought I can never say to my mom. And it's okay. That's life. And also, I was never molested by a priest. Again, I just like saying shit like that. It's fun. But if you have parents, I know parents could be overbearing sometimes, and this is not one of those go hug them, fuck that, right? But look at them with grace. That's all I'm asking you. Look at them with grace. That's it. You're trying your best. They tried your best. We have way more resources than they did, and our fuck-ups are way bigger somehow. But these people did it with like no internet and no ChatGPT. How do I beat up my son without leaving marks? You know what I mean? Like, they did it organic. It was organic. So just, all I ask of you is just look at your parents with a bit of grace and understand that while you feel it's the same DNA, it should be the same catalog. The times around us changed, and they tried their best, and God fucking knows I'm trying my best as well. Thank you, guys.
George, one more time. It's incredible you can talk about all this, because in the best sense of the term, it comes out incredibly raw. So thank you for sharing the story. Wow. And you're here. I don't wear glasses when I'm up here because the glare is weird. So I was convinced he was right there. He's right there. Trying to say that I'm blind. I'm not an idiot. Okay. Although the jury is out. The next person who's coming up came for the first time last month, and she reached out to me through Instagram. And she was great. And she's back again. This is Rose.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, George. I'm going to, basically, I had written a whole bunch of things. The reason why I fell in love with this place, actually, it inspired me. When I first came here, it was a few months ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, the opportunity to tell stories or things you've written and do that live with others and make an impact, because to me, stories have made such an impact on my life. And I feel I retain information better by stories. Like, I love to learn, and George's story actually reminded me of my childhood. Actually, I loved books when I was a kid because I could use my imagination. Like, I would see a red brick house, and your idea of a red brick house might be different. So that's what I loved about reading. It gave me a chance to use my imagination. So everything I'm doing tonight is spontaneous, and so I really thought about it as an important story that was a part of my journey. I've always been a deep introspective type of person. My dad had a whole bunch of different type of books. My mom used to put me for naps, and I would actually, she needed the nap. I was actually up, and we had a little bookcase in the back, and I'd be reading, and I'd be esoteric, lots of different esoteric stuff. I was always into the unseen stuff. Ever since I was a kid, I was a deep introspective type person. Anyways, years later, I would eventually work at a casino. And I went through the biggest part of my growth at a casino, being a cocktail server on the gaming floor. And we had complimentary, I opened Casino Niagara. It was a pretty busy place. It was standing room only. The trays were heavy. It was thank God I was doing my spiritual work and moving like that, because I really wanted to be a dealer. And I'll tell you right now, I would have been abused so badly at the time, you know, so I was just so grateful. I was a cocktail server on the gaming floor. So there's a certain point in my spiritual journey, I'm like growing so much exponentially, and my biggest thing is I'm walking through sections and you know, asking people if they want to, would you like a complimentary coffee, juice, pop, bottled water, iced tea, hot chocolate? Really deep stuff, right? So I end up saying to my teacher, I'm like, this is years later and I'm growing, and I share some of those stuff with my coworkers, but I feel like, how can I make an impact? Like, this doesn't feel like I'm really making an impact. And she said to me, how do you not know you're the only light in that place? And I said, what? She said, how do you not know you're the only light in that place? Well, the truth of the matter is, there's a little bit of a background about that. Robin Williams, actually, I loved Robin Williams, and he was telling the story about his son, about how he kind of imagined his son being like the president, or, do you want fries with that? And I kind of saw my job more like that. Do you want fries with that? You know, so when she said that to me, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to start looking at it that way. So I started seeing everywhere I went my light was needed, and I started my daily practice, and I studied a gentleman by the name of David Hawkins. He was a psychiatrist, and he actually, at the age of 51, he had so many illnesses, he had to carry a 3x5 cart to remind himself of what he could eat. And he realized he manifested all that by what he held in mind. He was so good at illness, he became all the illnesses he studied about. So he eventually did a thing called A Course in Miracles, and he started, I didn't expect to go in this direction, but he started undoing all those thoughts. And as he did, all of his illnesses started to fall away. But one of the things that really inspired me about him was that he said that the reason why people prayed over food was it actually made it 10 times better for you. So I made a conscious decision, I'm going to set my attention to anything I come in contact with is blessed as I move throughout the day, because I'm driving back and forth, commuting back and forth, and from Hamilton to Niagara Falls and stuff like that. And I'm seeing that wherever I'm needed, my light is, right? Offering that out in some way with a whole bunch of other things that I offered. And I remember I had been doing it for quite some time, and I really didn't know if it was making a difference. It made me feel good. I had one teacher tell me I didn't have a right to impose my light, so I only offered it to anyone who wanted it. I just said, I offered whoever wants it, who doesn't want it, just pass right by. So years later, I'm like doing a course teachings, and I'm making coffee. Like I'm serving, and there's this lady, she orders a coffee from me. She's like, I'd like one of your double doubles. She goes, I love your coffee. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I walk back to the bar, and I'm making the coffee. Like, we couldn't drink on the gaming floor. Like, we could drink water, that's it. So I wasn't even doing sugar at the time, so I didn't even know if, like, I must make really good coffee double doubles. Like, we were pouring the sugar. Anyway, so I come back to her, and she says, no, you don't understand. I've been coming to this casino since it opened, and I really like to drink coffee when I gamble. But the coffee in your casino makes sores in my mouth. She said, but not your coffee. So my intention was to bless everything I came in contact with. So how do you not know you're the only light where you are? How do you not know you're making an impact where you are? I'm just asking. I didn't anticipate saying that. So years later, I would be in a group, and there was a gentleman that was studying Reiki. And he was like all excited about it. He's like, oh, I can't wait to make a real impact. And I said, well, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm a graphic artist. And I said, okay, so does your graphics go on the internet? He's like, yeah. I said, well, you realize your light goes into all those graphics, right? So how do you not know you're the only light in this place? Anyways, thank you for...
Give it up to Rose. I've never understood Reiki, but every person I know who's been involved with it has always told me it is completely beyond comprehension. But if it clicks, it clicks. So anybody who talks about it always interests me. Thank you for bringing up Even just on like the periphery of your story, that's a cool thing to hear. So I'm going to do a story now as well. That's okay with everybody? I do not do life lessons. If anyone gets a moral out of this story, I have failed horribly. So don't take any life lessons. Do not get a moral out of this story. I'll tell you why. It's because I went through years and years of Baptist Sunday school. And nothing horrible happened to me. Everybody was very nice. But every lesson had to have a life lesson or a moral attached to it. It's very simple. You could have a story about a kid flying a kite. And the narrator would say, well, in a lot of ways, Billy, flying a kite is the way I treat you as my son, because sometimes I have to pull you back from hurting yourself, even though you feel like you're flying and stuff like that. I got to a point in my life, I do not do life lessons. I have given advice once or twice. I also killed a cat with my bare hands once. I'll get into that in a second. So don't do that, okay? It's like the one life lesson I want to give is don't kill a cat with your bare hands. My point about that is that things connect in weird ways. The cat happened when I was around 16 years old, and this is not a hobby. It was not a dare, and it was not something that I had been looking forward to over the summer. I was walking back from a movie, and if you want to know how old I am, I had just seen the original Red Dawn in downtown Toronto. And I'm walking home. I lived around Yonge Street and 401 in Toronto. I had to walk up a long hill from the subway. I walked through a churchyard, and I had a buddy who lived there who used to go to Baptist Sunday school with me. His name was Ian. They had a cat. His mother had a white cat whose name was Saint Jack K, named after Jack Kerouac for reasons I do not know. And one evening, she was going out to get some ice cream, and she backed out of the driveway, and she didn't hit Saint Jack K exactly. She hit half of him. So by the time I walked past that house and went, hey, Ian, how you because there are a bunch of people standing around this driveway around half a cat. Now, I mean, the half was still attached, but it was kind of flattened. And the cat was still alive, but clearly not in the best of shape. And I kept hearing whispering. I kept thinking, okay, well, they don't want to be loud because the cat, maybe they're waiting for a vet, maybe they're waiting for animal control, and I realized the whispering was actually the sound of the cat going, rather than meowing. I knew Ian, I knew his father, I'd met his mother. His mother is hysterical. Like, I'm not blaming her for this. She's in the car and she's saying, we've called somebody, they should be coming here very soon, we've called somebody. And Ian's father is standing behind her looking at me saying, and I have a bizarre superpower, which I don't bring up often, because you can't really bring this up at a dinner party. I'd also been a Boy Scout. I told you that I had this very white bread existence. I'd been a Boy Scout. In Boy Scouts, one of the things they teach you is if you snag a rabbit, or if you trap a rabbit and it's alive, they teach you how to break its neck. Same physics apply to a cat. So at the tender age of 16 or so, I am faced with this, and I'm just kind of standing around, and as Ian's mother is freaking out in the background, his father looks at me and says, no, we can't leave him like this. And I said, I could. And they looked at me, and I took off my jacket, and I put it over the cat, and I put one hand on the shoulder and one hand on the head, and kind of braced myself, and the cat was no longer in misery. Ian's mother did not deal with this well, for obvious reasons. She starts screaming at me. Ian's father is holding her. Ian's going, I get it, go. And I walk home. This is not the end of the evening I wanted, but it's just something I did that particular time. I saw Ian, I guess at church, 2 or 3 weeks later, and he just came up to me and said, my mom is pissed. I thought, I guess she would be. And she wouldn't look at me. His father said, we agreed that was the right thing to do, Michael, and thank you for doing that. We didn't know how that happened, and Alice understands, but she doesn't want to talk to you. So we all understand this, right? Like, I have nothing against the fact that she didn't want to talk to me. I understand why she didn't want to talk to me. But I have another case where someone stopped talking to me, and I have no idea why. and her name was Nellie. Nellie was a friend of my girlfriend, and this is in the 1990s. My girlfriend was a triple threat. She was a dancer and a musician and a pretty good actor. And Nellie was one of her friends. Nellie was Irish, and she would do Sinead O'Connor and, what's her name, Sarah McLachlan covers at pubs. And we all kind of knew each other, and Nellie was great. Nellie was really nice to me, and she was nice to Louise, until something happened. Very abruptly, and I'm talking around like a week and a half. Two things happened to Nellie. Number one, she became intensely Catholic. Nothing against it, okay? I'm not Catholic myself, and nothing against it, but she became really intensely Catholic for reasons nobody was very sure about. She'd say things like, I actually have a fairly high standing among Catholic lay people. And I'm thinking, I thought Catholics weren't supposed to lay people. I mean, they do anyhow. I could tell you some stories. She became intensely Catholic, and she also became intensely, I am going to be a professional singer. She worked at a print shop, so she kept printing up business cards with her name and her phone number and the cassette tape she was selling, because this is really before CDs were cheap to, this is a long time ago, before CDs were cheap to distribute. So every time I saw her, she would give me a cassette and she would give me a new business card and she would lecture me about the importance of being Catholic and how maybe I should start thinking about what I want to do with my spiritual life. And every time she did this, I kept thinking, well, you know, I could be a grown-up and address this properly, or I could simply say, are you still sleeping with that married man? Okay, now you notice I did not say that they were having intimate relations. I would suggest that they were sleeping together because it's decidedly possible they were just cuddling. But she had been dating someone who was just about to finalize a divorce. And this had been happening for around 6 months, maybe longer. And there was always some kind of problem, and he was just about to finalize it. And of course, he had to share the house with his soon-to-be ex-wife. And of course, they had to take a vacation together because they'd paid for it. And it was becoming obvious to me that perhaps things were not exactly the way she wanted them to be. None of this is my business. I don't know why this had anything to do with her suddenly deciding she couldn't stand me. But very abruptly, I noticed that she wouldn't speak to me directly. She would say things like, can you ask Michael to bring a bottle of wine over here? Louise, can you get Michael? Can you ask Michael to bring the popcorn? Thanks. And she would be standing in front of me. And it was like a very weird snub. And once or twice I said, have I done something? Are you not talking to me? And she said, I'm talking to you now. And then she'd walk away. Yeah. And 2 minutes later, she'd say, hey, can someone ask Michael to see if he's going to bring some pizza upstairs or something like that? It was weird. My girlfriend at the time also was not exactly the portrait of wonder and warmth. I think there had been one party where she literally, Nellie literally dodged me every time I simply said something like, you know, what have you been doing this week? How's life, etc. She was telling people for me to do things on her behalf, which was ridiculous. And I talked to Louise about it. I said, why is she doing this? Did I piss her off? What is happening? And Louise just said, I've talked to her about it. It's not that she doesn't like you. She just doesn't see any reason for you. Yeah. And I said, did you say anything in response to this as, you know, the woman I love, who apparently loves me? Yeah. And Louise just said, I don't tell people what to think. I mentioned she wasn't exactly the portrait of wonder and warmth at the time. Yeah. That's a different monologue. Eventually I broke up with Louise. And when I broke up with Louise, 5 or 6 of her friends decided not to speak with me on spec. We're in our early 20s. This is not an unusual thing to happen. I'm fine with that. I start seeing somebody else. And it is around 6 months later. I'm having a party. It's early spring. Louise has a concert downtown at the El Macombo. I'm not going to go there because we're not exactly in the best terms after the breakup, but I have sent a note saying, hey, I know you've really wanted to do this. Congratulations. I hope it goes well. Somehow that note found its way to Nellie, the one who doesn't like me. Nellie called me, and Nellie leaves a message on my answering machine. This is the days before digital voicemail. This is a good old-fashioned machine with a cassette tape. And it goes like this, and I'm not exaggerating. It's, hello, Michael. this is Nellie. I just want you to know that you are not going to come to Louise's show tonight because I do not want disgusting men who do horrible things to their girlfriends. And if you come here, Michael, I am going to stomp on you. I am going to piss on your shoes. I am going to kill you, Michael. Now, I did not kill this woman's cat. And she hates me. Ian's mother, and what sounds like an unrelated story, is not so unrelated. I understood why this woman didn't talk to me for years. Nellie, I have no idea. I've never done anything bad in her direction. I've never done anything bad around Louise for her to be pissed off. But I get this message from this intensely Catholic, we all have to live together and grow spiritually woman. Now, what would a petty son of a bitch do? Oh, no. No, that's a good idea. I should have gone to the concert. See, what a petty son of a bitch would do in the early 90s would be to take that cassette tape and, if they happened to live someplace where, like, their roommate had a boyfriend who was a musician and had a dual tape deck, would make 5 or 6 or 10 copies. And this vengeful son of a bitch would take those copies and put one of those business cards that Nellie gave him into the case with those cassettes and find assorted mutual friends or former mutual friends at this point and drop it off and say, hey, listen, you remember when I was seeing Louise and I kept saying that Nellie was being rude to me and everybody said I was being oversensitive? This is kind of her greatest hits package right here. And the best part is, if she did this to me, I promise she'd never do anything like this to you, would she? I was going to do that. I had 12 tapes set up. I had a business card in each one. I had a friend at CIUT, which is Ryerson Radio Station, and they're always looking for new material. I was going to drop it off. I am spitting. I am frothing at the mouth. I usually have a no aggression policy, but I've had it. I can't deal with this. This is awful. It takes me a day or so to prepare the tapes. I'm going to drop them off at people's houses. And yet, on a Sunday morning, 4:45 a.m., I get a phone call. Pick up the phone. Yeah, who is it? I said, Michael, it's Nellie. And I said, yeah, thank you for saying all that to my face. And she said, I don't know where you live, but can I say something to you, please? Okay, yeah, what is it? I should not have done that. None of that message had anything to do with you. I was out with some people and we were talking about things and I knew about the show and it just came out that way. I am very, very sorry I did that and I am just asking if we could please have this just between ourselves. And here's the thing. I told you this all happened in the spring. This was Easter morning, Easter Sunday. The devout Catholic girl has called me on Easter Sunday morning, early enough that she's going to a sunrise service. And here's the part where I also say, please don't take a moral out of this, because even though I could not bring myself to hand out the tapes, I don't know if it's exactly out of a spiritual awakening. I just thought, I've lost my ground. Because one of the things I was going to do is say, I've got this tape, and she never apologized. She never said sorry. She never explained it. Yes, she did. 4:45 Easter Sunday morning. I could not bring myself to take any further action. And after a few seconds, I said, okay, you know what? Yeah, it's okay. You called. You apologized. I will call this even. But can I ask one thing? She said, okay. I said, when you were going to concerts with Louise and I always paid your gas money. And you came from my house for parties 4 or 5 times. I always gave you dinner. And you always said thank you. What exactly did I do to be the object of that call and every bit of weirdness you've done for the last 6 months? And her answer was, take care of yourself. No life lessons other than stand on what you want to do. it would have been so much more fun just to hand out the tapes, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. The fun was out of it. I was resentful of myself that I couldn't actually go away with being vengeful, but I guess in the long run, it's something else. And this ties into the cat, which I know is bizarre and peripheral, but I always put them together because it was 10 years before I saw Ian's mother. And I was at a church event for a funeral for a common friend. And she came up to me and she said, Michael, yes, I don't think I've been exactly comforting or welcoming to you for, well, since that time with St. Jack K. And I said, I understand it. It was not a great experience. She said, well, thank you for understanding. And Nellie, not her real name, records jingles for all kinds of things, including the company I work for. So I was in an elevator with her 2 weeks ago. And just kind of thinking, oh yeah, it looks like Nellie. That's what she'd look like, 25, 30 odd years. Oh shit. And kind of looked at me, and I kind of rolled my eyes, and she kind of rolled her eyes. And we both kind of smiled and got off the elevator. Not sure what moral or life lesson you would take from that. I hope you don't take anything, but maybe get long enough away from something, it doesn't matter. That's all I got. Thank you. Give me 2 seconds, please, because I'm not sure who's next. Next person coming up is Stacy, who I think is working her way to the stage. Please give her a hand.
Sorry, I have never ever done anything like this, and I heard about it yesterday. I don't like these lights, so now I see why performers are always saying about the lights. But I commend everyone. It's been a really interesting experience, and love everyone's stories. But I love solo traveling. It's something that I found great passion in over the last 4 years or so, and I like that it kind of brings me out of my comfort zone. It challenges me in so many different ways. Huge proponent for it, recommend it to anyone. But this story, I can't memorize worse shit, so I have to tell stories that I've lived. So this, I will say, where the fuck did that wall come from? That would be the title of it. So I was going to the Azores a couple of years ago, and it was one island. For those that don't know, it's 9 islands in total, 1,500 kilometers off the coast of Portugal. Amazing. So I went to one island for 10 days. All I plan when I travel is my accommodations, my travel, my transit, and usually one historical tour. So I had booked one for early on in my trip, and I had booked a car for the 10 days. Well, traveling alone, finances are tight, so I booked a manual transmission. I hadn't driven one in about 8 years, so that's fun. Those are very tiny streets. And in Terceira, it's built on a volcano, so there are rocks every frickin' place, all lining all roads, absolutely everywhere. So I landed in Terceira. I got notification that the one tour that I booked for the Saturday morning, I flew in on a Thursday night, was canceled. They had to push it back. So I was like, okay. So I go to the airport. I land at about almost 1:45, and I pick up the car. It's pitch black, and I'm in this tiny little fucking car. Sorry, I swear. It's natural instinct right now. And I'm like, okay, I just got to get the heck out of this parking space. And I'm like, all right. So came back to me, fortunately, like riding a bike. Managed to find my accommodations and not stall a car too many times. But I ultimately left it there, found a space near the hostel, and I jumped in my room, just grabbed what I needed to, went and grabbed things in the morning. First morning there, walk out, I have a parking ticket. It's not like here, they charge you €4. Fantastic, loved it already, but was like, okay, great start. So Fast forward a few days, I had left the car there, wasn't driving very much, and then the morning of my tour, I was leaving that accommodation or the canceled tour, and going to another accommodation, so I had to kind of figure out on the fly what I was doing that day, and I didn't want to ruin it by just missing all the things along the way. So I ultimately found a hike about half hour away, and it's not like here where hike places have like big boards that show you where to park and everything. This was in a tiny little village with tiny little streets and a lot of stone. And my GPS is like, you're here, parking on the right or whatever. All in a GPS that I'm not used to using here. So very unfamiliar territory, and there happened to be one other person in a vehicle in that whole village, and he happened to be in front of me and decided to park parallel when he needed to park to tuck in. I was unable to, and he waved me around, being a good gentleman. Well, I needed to be there because I didn't know where I was to go after that. I continued on, I was going up a hill. There's stone walls, the hill keeps going. I'm used to being a little bit protective of myself when I travel. There was nothing around. So I was like, well, I either have to go to the top and figure out what's there, someone I'm potentially trespassing on their land. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna back up now and back up down a curvy hill, stupid as all heck, and watching where the walls are. I finally find a driveway to back into. Well, all of a sudden the sensors start going beep, beep, beep. There was an indication on the right side that there was something really fucking close to my car. So I had already felt the car rocking back into the ditch when I looked out my passenger side and saw a giant wall, stone wall, immediately beside my mirror. So in that split second, I had so many thoughts going through my head, tripping out like, I'm gonna hit this wall. And also, you know, I'm in the middle of nowhere with no cell service, so that's great. So I braced myself, I put all the negative self-doubt and self-talk away, and I just said, Stace, you're gonna hit that fucking wall. And it just, but I will say too, there was a wall on the other side of the very narrow road. So I couldn't gun it with my knowledge of standard because I was gonna smash the wall in front of me. Somehow in that moment, I pulled my shit together. I smashed the heck out of the side of the car, the mirror fell off, but I got out and I pulled over and I looked at the car and I was like, yeah, that really fucking sucks. In a tiny island. So kind of panicking, walking around, find this beautiful Portuguese couple, and they're trying to help me. And I just needed to know where there was a store so that I could buy something to try and fix this. Oh, I will also say the deposit for the car was $3,000. So I did not want to get in the short end of that stick. So ultimately I ended up, they said China store, like a Dollarama type store. So they gave me directions. I found my way there, found a remedy of duct tape. They have good duct tape over there, really good. And it was a Saturday. I had nowhere else to go. Everything was closed. It was early afternoon. Everything's closed until Monday. So I ultimately made my way to my accommodation, which was a banana plantain. And there was a woman there. And she had suggested to go to the dealership Monday morning. So I got, like any young female probably feels at automobile places, I was getting the short end of being ripped off in terms of what they were quoting me. So I grabbed their quotes. They kindly were able to go down to 250 euros. It was gonna be about 650 euros, which is just money, but that fucking sucks. And ultimately, I ended up finding a gas station on the side of the frickin' road, and the old Portuguese man who spoke zero English, He told me, he pulled me into the garage, he took it right apart, he MacGyvered it. Basically, I wasn't able to push it back in, and he charged me 10 euros. And the lady who was at the banana plantation called the dealership, and I've never seen a Portuguese person yell so much, just defending a complete stranger. So all of this to say, travel solo, go to the Azores. They're great people, and push yourself, because you'll be amazed at what you're able to overcome.
Amy, please. That was so cool. And you don't speak a word of Portuguese? No. No apology necessary. That is so cool. I'm terrified of any type of auto disaster. So like the fact you did that and stayed sane by itself, especially someplace where you don't speak English, is remarkable. Come back next month and do another story, please. Last storyteller is somebody I've known for a frighteningly long time. We performed at the same events in Toronto on occasion, and he comes in from Toronto here and there to be here. He's intense and he's great. Brian Terrio.
I've always had a problem with how to define myself in a business sense. People ask me what I do, and I say, I make pictures with computers. And they say things like, well, you're a computer artist. That's nice. I say, no, I'm not an artist. I make pictures with a computer. When I was growing up, I worked summers in a sign shop. And there was an old sign writer who cut his teeth back in the 40s. What he used to do is paint the billboards for the weekly specials in grocery stores. A long time ago. This is the way they used to advertise prices and stuff. He was skilled and fast, and all he would take the board, do a couple of lines on it, a couple of diagonals, grab a brush, and paint special with the price, and it looked gorgeous every time. And fast, he could do that over and over again. Change fonts so that it'll look completely different. Each store had their own kind of preference, and he knew these off by heart. But he could just spit these things out. It's just amazing to watch this guy work. That guy was an artist. He loved his work. He took the time to perfect the craft. He made those signs beautiful. I mean, proportional too. I mean, the weight of the letters inside the white space. It was amazing. He was gifted. When I went to college, the very first day of college, they just arbitrarily assign everybody seats. And I'm sitting next to this guy, and his name is Doug. And they said, well, we just want to find out where everybody's skill level is at. So do a drawing of your favorite character. Now, it's completely open-ended. Whatever character is whatever character. I had been drawing a little dude, kind of just a street punk. And that's what I drew. So I was just drawing away. And Doug was drawing away too at the same time. And I look over at Doug's work, and it is comic book accurate. I am mystified. It is beautiful work. And that's when I stood up from this job, and we only had like 20 minutes to do this thing, but I just stood up and walked around the room and looked at everybody else's stuff. Because if they all looked like his stuff, I'm out of here. I'm going to go get my refund, get my money back, because I am not in that guy's league. Yeah, Doug works for Disney. He's been doing that job for the last 15 years. He is a talent. He was pulled out of school in third year. He never technically graduated because he was already in the big show. He was already working, making the money. That man is an artist. While I was at college, we had life drawing classes. And they were challenging. They were, I was pretty comfortable with it, but it's kind of tough being around naked people and, forced to work really fast and to try to do this stuff. But we had great instructors, and one of them was a surrealist artist from South America. And I was very impressed with how she could do her sketches. Like she would just be talking to the class and just arbitrarily doing something with and it was beautiful, like stunningly beautiful. Had all the proper proportions. Everything was just amazing. One day she spoke specifically to the model, and this was out of the ordinary for her. Usually she'd just say, okay, there's 20 10-second poses. So that's what she'd say to the model, and that's the way it would work. But she was very specific, kind of whispering to her, and then she explained the same thing, 20, 10-second poses. And away she went. And then she went over to a board, and she started drawing herself, which is unusual for her. Usually she's walking behind us, evaluating our work and giving us suggestions. So when it was all over, when they had finished this course of poses, I dashed over behind her easel so I could see what she was doing. And she had explained to the model that she wanted each one of these poses to interact with the next pose. So basically, she had a sheet full of women having sex with each other, but they were all the same person. And she had them all arranged. I don't know how she did it. It's just absolutely stunning. And of course, me dashing over there and looking at the pose embarrassed the hell out of the teacher. But when she realized she was caught, she just took a step back. Okay. Then everybody else, of course, I'm going, whoa, this is awesome. So of course everybody had to come over and take a look. It was stunning. And there were people, oh, I didn't know that they were doing that. And it's, what? It's beautiful. Look at that. That is gorgeous. She was an artist. As I said, a surrealist artist. World acclaimed. She's still in operation today. She's living in Toronto. Gifted is an understatement. She is an artist. I can never say that for myself. Being an artist is not a definition you can give yourself. It's something that somebody else has to give to you. And thankfully, I've never had that burden bestowed upon me. But I tell you, don't ever think that a computer could do what these people do. They can mimic it. They'll never be an artist.
Brian Terrio. Just for the record, firstly, beautifully told story, but for the record, you are a far better artist than you give yourself credit for. Right back at you. There you are. You said that she would have someone pose and then slightly move and slightly move. Who painted nude walking down the stairs? Is it Picasso? Yes. So I can kind of picture what she was doing, but just to have the brain to do that is astounding. I have no idea. I can't draw a cube. I've always envied this guy because he can draw anything. He can be an animator, and I can't draw a stick figure properly. So everybody wants to do something they can't do. We're at the end of this evening. Just want to remind people, if they still want some type of a snack or a drink, this will be open for a bit longer. If you perform tonight and you want a video of your performance, talk to George. He can arrange for it. I want to thank everybody who came here, everybody who performed. We do this first Friday every month. Come back with your imagination, whatever you... I always figure you tell stories about things that you can't forget, good or bad. So I'm always privileged when people come and they share it with me. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Enjoy July.